CO, CO. Hey, CO, over here, over here. Yeah. Hey, CO, I got a complaint. Man, these inmates in here, they're driving me crazy. I can't sleep. They're calling me fishy fish. They're just harassing me. It's crazy. I can't believe it. They're harassing me. They're calling me a multi-murderer. And I'm just trying to get some sleep, officer. What can you take a report? Can you make sure that the prison warden releases a statement to the public that's all about my safety? Come on, CO, why are you walking away? CO, listen to me. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back again. I'm going to spend a little bit more time here with you tonight. We got to do another review. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, when there's one clown, there's a bunch of clowns, and they play follow the leader. That's right. You got to remember this now. I know it sounds a little comical. I'm a little bit less stressed today. I've calmed down a little bit. I'm not quite as frustrated anymore, even though now it's just becoming monotonous. It's piling on top of each other, one after the other. It's like literally one had to say it, two had to say it. Now they're all having to talk about Bryan Kohberger being harassed behind prison bars. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's now, he's being called fishy fish. That's right. He's being called through the vents. He's being harassed to where it's even being stated that Bryan Kohberger cannot sleep at night. Can you believe this? He cannot sleep at night. Well, damn it, ladies and gentlemen. I thought for sure he was a night owl. He was out at all times of the night, even at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on most occasions, to where the state believed that's how and when he committed his quadruple homicide. But that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get settled in here. I hope you have a beverage with you, whatever is your favorite one. If it makes you a little bit impaired, it's probably for the better, because we're going to go over Brian Enton's newest video. And man, parts of this just made me sick. I literally used to like Brian Enton. I thought he was pretty respectful in the things that he covered and how he covered them, even when he was just heart and soul News Nation. And now, of course, he's got his own work, his own channel here on YouTube. And he's trying to do his own thing, which is good. But the problem is he's fallen into the trap. He's fallen into the traps, and we're going to work our way through this video. It's a little bit longer. It's about a 15-minute video, so it's longer than the one last night. So I'm going to take less time talking, but I do want to let you know, before we get started into this, I'm going to be stopping this, giving you my personal views on things, but more importantly, I will be releasing a video tomorrow in regards to the intake process through settling in on your first yard, your first run, what it's like as a penitentiary inmate, a first-timer, brand new number, what's considered to be a fish, what it's like to have to walk into a segregation unit, throw your mat down on the concrete slab, and prepare yourself to call this place home. So I'm going to bring that real-life experience to you, so look forward to that, because we'll compare within that video what it's like for people like Bryan Kohberger and others as a newbie to the prison yard and how it all works. But right now, we got to play Follow the Clown. We got to play Follow the Clowns. And we got to jump in with Brian Enton and his newest. Oh, I don't think this is an interview. This is a podcast, but we'll just roll with it. Hope you're ready. Let's do it.
Really appreciate it. We just now got a response from the Idaho Department of Corrections about Bryan Kohberger's, what I think are ridiculous complaints now that he is in the max security prison. I'll tell you what the state is now saying about it. I'll tell you what he's been complaining about, which again, like eye roll for me, but whatever. I'll get into all of it in this episode of Bryan Enton Investigates. Hey guys, thanks again.
So first, let's stop there, and let's just make a mental note of this. The Bryan Enton is literally discussing what the Department of Corrections in Idaho had to release via a statement. So this tells you, and this is my personal opinion, but I'm going to run with this. I'm really going to run with this, that this is just a part of the narrative, ladies and gentlemen. We've watched it since this case broke. It became even more heated when Bryan Kohberger was arrested. The narratives built and built and built, and now, even after he has pled guilty, been sentenced, sent to the penitentiary, trying to settle into his home for the time being, he is still having to have this narrative play out. And now it's even at the point, come on, Idaho, you've got to be better than this, because there's people like myself and many others that have been through the system. We know the Department of Corrections does not put out any type of comment, especially about something of this nature. Are we seriously so intertwined into the Bryan Kohberger saga that now even the penitentiary has to answer questions of the hooting and hollering on a so-called prison tier? I mean, come on. Who cares who bangs on doors? The Department of Corrections legitimately has to put out a statement about that. I call that BS. I call it BS.
New channel, really appreciate it. In this episode, I am going to talk about a new statement that we just got from the Idaho Department of Corrections responding to Bryan Kohberger's complaints. Apparently he has been complaining about things inside the maximum security prison. By the way, I'm still just like my last episode. I found this sort of like kind of cozy place to shoot these episodes while I'm on the road. I have this rental Jeep that I'm in.
I found a cozy place to do my videos from too, and it's called home. I don't have a rental Jeep. I can't even drive because I'm blind, so all of you should be thankful. But my comfy place is at home, and man, I forgot I made my coffee, and oh, here I sit making a video. Let's go.
I don't know why, just like sitting back here, I have all my stuff back here. So just seemed like an easy place to shoot an episode. But I'm going to get to all of the complaints that Bryan Kohberger has had about the prison in a second. Also, I'm going to talk to you guys about what it's like inside that prison, because I actually got a full 2.5-hour tour of the prison when I was in Idaho a couple of weeks ago. But let me start.
Yep, that 2.5-hour tour of the penitentiary sure gives you a grasp, ladies and gentlemen, of what the penitentiary's all about and like. Let me tell you, when you're there for 2.5 hours, you learn everything about prison life. You know the politics, you know the dynamics, you know exactly how it works just by setting foot in there and making a little trudge around with your little group of individuals. I will add more to that statement, so look forward to that. But here we go some more.
Off by reading you the latest here from the Idaho Department of Corrections. This is in response to Bryan Kohberger complaining about things in prison, and we just got the statement. Idaho Department of Corrections says, "We are aware of Kohberger's complaints about what he considers taunting. Incarcerated individuals commonly communicate with each other in prison. Bryan Kohberger is housed alone in a cell, and Idaho Department of Corrections security staff maintain a safe and orderly environment for all individuals in our custody." So the Department of Corrections has responded.
Now, let's take a little chunk out of that. They do all they can for the safety of the inmates, which I call BS on. I don't know how many of you guys know, how devastating for inmates it is, not only mentally, physically, but health-wise, everything about it. And if you truly feel like the Department of Corrections cares at all about your health or well-being, just tune in with me. Just here in the very near future, because I'm going to show you proof. They don't care not only about the inmates, but they do not even care about their own staff. But do you really... Let's hold on a minute. Do you think Bryan Kohberger is literally complaining that he's being taunted in the penitentiary? I mean, is this legitimately the story we're going to run with? He's being taunted in the penitentiary. Come on now.
To these allegations made by Bryan Kohberger. And this part now, that was the statement from the Idaho Department of Corrections that I received. This reporting comes from the Daily Mail. They are the ones who have been reporting through sources that Bryan Kohberger has had issues in prison. And what they're saying is inmate number 163214, that's his inmate number, is having a far from smooth sailing experience in prison, that he's been relentlessly tormented by his new jailmates who are shouting.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, this tells you how much the Daily Mail knows. Jailmates? Jailmates. Is Bryan Kohberger still in jail, or has he been moved to the penitentiary? There's a big difference. There's a big difference. But remember, Daily Mail says his jailmates.
Shouting through the vents into his cell at all hours of the day. They say that it is rattling Kohberger, driving him crazy. The inmates are tormenting him at night at almost all hours of the day, taunting him through the vents in his cell. They're literally getting up into the grate and yelling at him. The inmates are taking turns doing it. It is relentless.
See, they're even letting you know the inmates are on shifts. Okay, there's 32 inmates within that pod, and they're doing it on shift work. They work their hours. They get paid on Fridays at 5 p.m. for working their shift in harassing Bryan Kohberger.
That's what the Daily Mail is reporting, that Kohberger is extremely annoyed and frustrated. He's complaining to authorities that he cannot sleep because of it.
Bryan Kohberger sleeping. Bryan Kohberger sleeping. Doesn't that kind of tell you maybe the sources are a little off? Bryan Kohberger and sleep don't go in the same sentence.
And basically, I guess, has just been making these complaints now for the last couple of days. And apparently the prison doesn't seem to really care, which honestly, like, who really cares? I mean, this guy admitted to killing 4 innocent young college kids, and he is annoyed that he can't sleep in prison. I mean, who cares? So I know that Bryan Kohberger is being housed in the J block of the maximum security prison, which is about 30 minutes or so outside of.
And remember, Chris McDonough, who we did the video on last night, he was the one that was breaking all this down. He was breaking all of this down and talking about how disruptive and how mean these people are being to Bryan Kohberger. So now we're following up with that. You're going to find out why I call this follow the leader. But yes, Brian Enten's going to now go into the fact that he's in J block, which we've discussed, which is solitary confinement. It's segregation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the big boys of the big boys are housed. These are the hoot and hollerers. These are the people that get in the vents that have so much time and effort to give to Bryan Kohberger rather than making the decisions for the yard, the complex, or even the state's inmates.
Of Boise, and that's actually the same block as where the death row inmates are housed, and you're in total isolation. So I got this 2.5-hour tour of the maximum security prison when I was there right before the sentencing, and I didn't see the exact area where Kohberger is now in the J block, but I saw all the other areas where the inmates are it's very similar. It's all basically the same. And so he is housed in.
It's not all basically the same, ladies and gentlemen. What he toured was general population of a maximum security closed custody yard, which means you have inmates moving. They're moving around. They make more noise. There's more going on in other parts of the penitentiary. This is segregation. This is called AgSeg. This is where the big boys of the big boys are. Even the death row inmates are just on the other side of a slider door from this unit, not the same exact part of the building. They're just on the other side of a sliding door. So what you need to understand is his entire tour was of a part of the penitentiary that Bryan Kohberger is not housed in. So that should tell you right now, everything that he's going to share based upon his thoughts or his experience is not the unit Bryan Kohberger is housed in. Remember that, because he's going to say some things and contradict some things that I say. But I'm telling you now, he was never in the building that Bryan Kohberger is housed in. He admits it himself, not even me.
Inside a cell by himself 23 hours a day. So he can't really see the other inmates based on what I saw there, because they're also in the cells 23 hours a day. The only time he would be able to see them is when they're brought out one by one, because they each get outside time for 1 hour a day. So when they bring them out, they shackle them, and I guess when they're walking by, Kohberger could have some interaction with them, and they're brought out just for 1 hour a day to this sort of outdoor area that's still totally enclosed. I mean, it's outside technically, because the roof, which has a gate on the top, but you can at least see the sun, but you're not actually like outside like what you would see in prison in the movies where there's a basketball hoop and all of that stuff. It's still kind of inside. So the only time I think that Kohberger would actually see the other inmates is when they are being brought by his cell when they get their hour out each day.
And he's wrong. I mean, did you just see those numerous cages out there? That's called the rec yard. So those cages are out there for the ag seg, exactly what Bryan Kohberger is housed in, inmates to be locked into while they're all out getting an hour out. If you remember in my video last night, I told you, not just one inmate goes at a time. They have to get more inmates out to fulfill the hour a day out. So they take them out to that rec yard, which typically houses between 4 to 8 inmates individually in those cages. So when he makes a statement that they never see each other, they never talk to each other, they never pass kites, they never anything, that's BS, because they're right there in those very cages you just saw in this video with your own eyes. That's where you do your rec time. That's where you do your push-ups. That's where you do your running in place. That's where you do your communicating with the other inmates on the various different levels of the tier within the building. That's how you pass kites. That's how you get information to other parts of the penitentiary. It all goes down right there.
But what they're saying about him saying that he's tormented, what's happening, and I saw this when I was there, is even though the prisoners can't see each other, the cells are still next to each other, and there's 2 stories, and they all yell at each other through the grates. I mean, it happened while I was there. They're constantly screaming, and they find ways to communicate with each other. And when I was there, I saw something happening that the jail staff told me is called fishing, which is when they use like a line, like basically they'll, from their clothes or from their blanket, they'll like pull out small long strings like of cotton or whatever, and they'll almost use it like a fishing line, and they will do what they call fishing, where they'll attach notes to the end of the line, and then they'll put it under their cell door and try to like almost like fish it out into the open and try to get it to another cell so that they can communicate with another prisoner.
This is the way that inmates communicate via kites. This is the way that contraband gets passed, whether you need a lighter for your smoke, whether you need the smoke in itself, whether you need a little bit of more than the smoke, whatever need be, this is how it gets passed on these types of units outside of when there's inmates in the actual day room or being moved. Kites gets passed, and I'll even tell you this is a little bitty secret, just a little secret. Guards, COs pass them too. COs will pass the commissary. They'll even pass the contraband. You don't believe me? Oh, man, just shake your head and just understand that the corruptness is real, and the guards are just as much as a part of the politics within the penitentiary as the inmates are.
So that may be some of what's going on with Kohberger there, but it sounds to me like they're just yelling through the grates, which when I was there, I heard a lot of yelling. And it was interesting, the jail staff doesn't really seem to do anything about it, because it's kind of like they don't really care. Let the people yell, gives them something to do, gives the inmates something to do, and just really makes no difference to the staff. The staff.
But remember, Chris McDonough says that the staff, when Bryan Kohberger complains, breaks out their handy pen and their notebook, and they take notes, promising that they'll make sure that the information is taken down appropriately. And evidently, it gets all the way to the warden of the penitentiary, who then has to release some sort of statement to the public in regards to it.
staff is up in sort of a control center up above with thick glass where they look down into the pods. So when they're not down there, it's not like the yelling would really annoy them or anything like that because they're up in the pod, sort of in the control center. So they just let the yelling happen. They let the fishing happen, which we got on video, if you look closely here. And I'm assuming that's what's annoying Kohberger. But at the end of the day, again, who really cares? I mean, it is what it is. It's prison. And they're concerned that Kohberger could have a target on his back, that he could be.
But see, do you notice he says, who really cares? Who really cares? It's just prison. Well, evidently everybody seems to care because they're all coming out back to back to back to back to back with these videos in regards to Bryan Kohberger being harassed and the issues that he's having in the penitentiary. So when they ask who really cares, I think we have our answer.
Hurt by other prisoners, which is the reason that he is in this basically solitary confinement in the J block. There are other areas in the max prison where people come out into the pods and they can interact with each other, and I saw that. I don't suspect, based on what I have heard, that Kohberger is going to find himself in one of those parts of the prison anytime soon. I mean, he could spend the rest of his life in this solitary area where he's alone in the cell for 23 hours a day, mostly because, again, they're concerned that he has a target on his back and that he could end up being injured. So after touring the prison, meeting the prison staff, I'm sort of wondering how they are receiving these complaints. I think they take things like that somewhat seriously.
No, they don't. They don't take any of the complaints. If anybody ever does complain, which typically has to be done via some sort of handwritten complaint paperwork, they don't take any of it seriously. They don't hear it. They don't read it. They don't give a damn. You can't complain in the penitentiary. They won't even stop at your door to listen. They don't care.
But at the same time, again, it is prison, and the people were noisy when I was there, and I think that's just part of it, and I guess Kohberger is going to have to get used to it. He will eventually be able to have his own tablet in his cell, I learned, where he can email and he can listen to music, and you have that 24 hours a day, because he'll never leave the cell besides 1 hour a day. I also was told he'll be able to buy his own TV at some point, so he'll have access to music, to TV, and it seems like he's just going to have to get used to the other inmates yelling through the vents, because in my experience, that's what was happening there. And when I was there, which this was a couple of weeks ago, but there was a hunger strike going on in part of the prison. So there was essentially this battle happening between the prison warden and prison staff and some of the prisoners. And I forget how many people were on a hunger strike. I think it was a couple of dozen at the time. And what they were protesting is, so there were different gangs in the prison, which they try to get rid of, but there's really nothing you can do about it, because a lot of these people were in gangs before they went on the inside, and they're still in these gangs. And there were two gangs, and some of the gang members were upset that they weren't housed in the same pods as their other fellow gang members, and were trying to protest to get them moved to different parts of the prison. And as part of that, they were on this hunger strike.
I guarantee you that's not true. So it's called a sit down, to where the inmates put their minds together and they decide that the best way that they can fight for certain privileges that they want to be able to fight in the penitentiary is they go on what's called a hunger strike. They will refuse the delivered food that comes from the kitchen to their cells. They'll slide it back out and they'll refuse to eat it. By law, the state, because they are housing you and you are a part of the Department of Corrections, so you are their property, they have to ensure that you are eating, you're fed, you're clothed, everything of that nature. So when a sit down, when something like this happens, negotiations begin to happen between inmates, the warden, the staff, things of that nature, to come to a rectification of getting that sit down done and over with. A lot of times these sit downs come down to very simple things as the quality of food, the quality of medical care, the rec time, how many hours that you can go to the library per week, when and where you're allowed to shower. Things of that nature all cause sit downs. It is very rare in a penitentiary that a sit down ever occurs having anything to do. And when they use the word gangs, it's literally meaning affiliation, racial affiliations, different affiliations. So yes, they're gangs, but they're more of a prison politics type of situation. It's not about trying to get housed within the same building. When you're on a maximum security yard, it's rare that they're able to separate all that away from each other anyway. So you're not fighting for that. That might be what the prison wants to put out there and make people believe. That's their narrative, that it's all on the inmates. It's because they want to live together. They want to pat each other's butts in the same colored clothes. That's not what it's about. It's about the fact they're fighting for their privileges to either be restored or improved because the living conditions are not what they're supposed to be. They'll never tell you that, but that's what sit downs are all about.
And I don't know if it's still going on there. This was happening 3 weeks ago when I was there. So there's kind of a lot going on in the prison right now because you've got the hunger strike, you've got Kohberger who is now there, and you can tell that everybody is sort of like, not on edge, but the people who work there know that this is sort of a tense time. And now that you've got Kohberger also complaining, again, I just wonder if they really care with everything else that's going on there right now. So Chris Madonna was on with Banfield, and he is the director of the Cold Case Foundation, and he's the one with some of this reporting of specifics of what.
So, see, here's where I told you it was going to come. The follow the leader situation is here's where it's at. Chris McDonough came out with this information, which he got from the Daily Mail and other sources. So now he's just proudly sharing it, and everybody's following suit. And this is where people are just building that narrative that Bryan Kohberger is just being harassed. Bryan Kohberger is in pain. Bryan Kohberger is not going to be able to survive. He's crying at his door. It's all Chris McDonough getting up here with Ashley Banfield and others to begin the train effect. Follow the leader. Follow that engine car. Follow it. Follow it. Follow it.
What Kohberger says is happening in the prison. And I just want to read you some of what he said to Ashley Banfield. The inmates apparently were waiting on him, and when he got there, they are now making his life absolutely miserable. This is what McDonough is saying. They're utilizing the vent system, they're kicking the doors, they're taunting him, and they're basically, torturing him through psychology. He's complaining, and the guards at this point, the most they can do is write it down and tell him that there's nothing that we can do. You're not in physical harm, which, again, the physical harm is really their main concern here because they are concerned that someone may want to hurt Kohberger, which I know sounds weird because it's like Kohberger killed these 4 kids and who cares about it. But at the same time, it's the prison's job to keep everybody safe, too.
It is not the prison's job to keep everybody safe. They don't do it. They don't even think about it. They don't take any type of precautions to do that. And again, I'll go through and I'll show you proof of that based upon my experience and people I know. I'm going to show you a direct video that contradicts everything about what that is just said. But if that were true, if it was true that everybody was worried about each other's safety, well, then there would be precautions that there would never be any risk to Bryan Kohberger ever because they're taking precautions to make sure there isn't any.
And he was sentenced to be there for the rest of his life, so they want to make sure that he stays alive, which is the reason I, again, believe that he is going to stay in solitary confinement there in the J block where he is right now. When I was in Idaho, I interviewed a bondsman, a local bondsman who really knows the prison system well, who explained what it was going to be like for Kohberger in this specific prison and why they were concerned about him having a target on his back. Listen to what he told me.
So here's the next expert, ladies and gentlemen. This is the next expert that you bring to the table to describe what a maximum security penitentiary is you go out and you get a bondsman that works to bail bond people out of jail. Jail. So here's another just expert that has followed others' words, others' leads. Bail's bondsmen do not work with people out of the penitentiary, ladies and gentlemen. They don't set foot in the penitentiary. They have nothing to do with the penitentiary. They deal with people out of the jails. They don't even deal with people that are out on probation that violate or parole. That's not in their hands.
What is this max security prison like?
So the max security prison in Idaho is the most secure facility we have in the state, and it is housed with 540 spaces for inmates, and it's got double fences, double razor wire, electronic monitoring all the way around.
Oh my God, it's got all the features that even like medium level penitentiaries have. It's so sophisticated that it has fences. It's got 2 of them. It's even got 2 levels of razor wire. That's not a maximum security penitentiary that I have ever been to. Trust me, I've been through with the guns in the towers and everything of the nature, the shock fences, the trucks driving around 24/7. I get it. There's high-level inmates here for the Idaho side of things, but trust me, there's far worse.
And it's positioned with 6 other facilities that Idaho has, from community reintroducement to a women's facility.
It's called a prison complex, ladies and gentlemen.
That is the most
prison
secure facility, and
complex.
it's where death row is housed.
What will Bryan Kohberger's life be like there?
His life is going to be a little more harsh than what it was in the Ada County Jail. When he was there, we couldn't legally say he was guilty yet. Now he is guilty. He doesn't have all that, kind of back and forth stuff. He is a guilty murderer, and he's going to have to be segregated. As you may know, people in prison don't like people that hurt women or children, and he's hurt women.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I had to stop it right here. The children part is absolutely true. The children part is absolutely true. And I want people to understand this is truth and transparency. This is not meant me saying this in any manner to be disrespectful. Women are not on the list of offenses that inmates have an issue with unless it's sexual in nature. Do you know how many men are in the penitentiary, even on lower level yards, medium yards, high yards, that their offenses are directly connected to women? Abuse, battery, domestic violence, murder. It all happens. And probably a very large, high amount of people in the penitentiary have a crime that is involved a woman or 2 or 3 or more. That does not mean that now you're on the list of people in the penitentiary that are going to want to harm you because you have a crime against women. I'm sorry. I don't like to see women get abused. I don't like any of that myself, but that does not hold the standard in the prison politics that would put you or your life at risk because you have a crime against women, unless it's sexual in nature.
And that's not something that the inmates there take lightly to. It's something that is definitely going to put a target on his back.
And the people in that same prison are the most dangerous.
They're the most dangerous in Idaho. That's where it is. The facility he's in is a men-only facility, and it's the most dangerous prisoners in Idaho.
Wow. Will he be alone all the time?
He will be in confinement. It's not going to be a disciplinary segregation. It's going to be more of an administrative segregation because of the target on his back for murdering women. And
So he avoided the question and then had to throw in the term against women at the end of that. But will he be alone all the time? No, he's in a pod with 32 people. He's not ever alone. Never. Just because your door slides behind you in the middle of the night or whenever you get locked into that cell doesn't mean that you're always alone. And trust me, when they make this little view in front of you that he'll never be around other inmates, I beg to differ.
He will be out an hour a day, and the former Attorney General of Idaho said he'll probably be in solitary his whole life, and I agree because of that.
So no interaction with other prisoners?
No.
So when they say no interaction with other prisoners, what the hell are they talking about? Who's catcalling Bryan Kohberger right now then? Who's calling through the vents right now if Bryan Kohberger doesn't have interaction with other inmates? How do other inmates fish and do all of the things that they're doing in the pod? They communicate. How are they out in those rec cages together if they're not interacting? Ladies and gentlemen, the very desks that you saw in these day rooms where they even talked about shackling the inmates to those desks. You want to know why those are there? Because they all come out together to do counseling. They do schooling. They do various things because it's rehabilitation. You have to understand, not everybody in this unit is serving max sentences. There are people housed in this unit doing less than a handful of years and are going to come back out to the streets and be released back to society. This is not deemed the house of only lifers in death row. That's not what this is. There are people in here that are going through the rehabilitation process to get released back to the streets.
Maximum security facility in Idaho does have a step-down program to where they can reintroduce people to other inmates, and they kind of put them in cages in the same room to where they can talk but not have contact. But I don't think he will ever get that chance.
So let me also explain, and we need to do a video on this. The step-down program has nothing to do with getting the inmates in there to integrate with each other. What the step-down program is, and it's exactly what I went through personally, is stepping down and out of an affiliation to better your life and move forward in a different direction than the gang/affiliation that you're involved with. You go through an entire investigation by the penitentiary, the prison wardens. Everybody is involved in it, including the state investigators on all levels. They get involved to make sure that you're real, you're serious, you're not just trying to play some hoax, that you're really trying to better yourself. So when you get into the step-down program, you can earn privileges away from what you normally get within your prison setting. You can earn an ability to step down out of a maximum security penitentiary down to a medium. You can earn your way all the way down. I've seen murderers on minimums, ladies and gentlemen. I've been there. I've seen it.
Something he would probably be smart not wanting, because there is that target, and people in prison don't forget. He will always have that target.
Yeah, I mean, you know what life is like behind bars because of what you do.
Yes.
I mean, how serious is the risk, do you think, to his?
Yeah, because of what he does. He knows all about time behind bars. I bet this guy, I bet you hadn't spent 20 minutes in a cell, ever. But he sure knows all about it. Just because he runs down and he puts the money up to get somebody out of jail, he's a bail bondsman. Of course, he would know everything about doing time, especially in the penitentiary. Oh, what an expert.
To his life.
The risk to his life is very serious. The target he has, and he's not only, they don't only have to say he's being protected from others, they have to protect other prisoners from him. But there's also those prisoners in there that are going to want to make a name for themselves. Behind bars, it's the game of who's tougher, who's scared me. And people are going to want to make a name for themselves doing something to him.
So we'll see how all this plays out. I don't suspect we're going to hear much more from the Department of Corrections because again, I hate to go back to this, but it's like, who really cares? I mean, if he's not physically harmed. And
so I'm actually going to save, there's just a very little tidbit left at the very end of this that I'm going to utilize in more content later. It has nothing to do with the actual conversation that they're having here, but it is something that I want to tackle at another time and spend a little bit of time on. But, ladies and gentlemen, what we're seeing here is very simple. This is called follow the leader, building a narrative. This is pleasing the masses through mainstream lies. They want to get it out there to help people feel a little more safe, to take the eyes off of Idaho. They want to get the eyes off of Bill Thompson. They want to get the eyes off of what's happening in Idaho's judicial system, where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had a plea bargain, and now Bryan Kohberger sits where he sits, and nobody's gotten any answers outside of I don't knows and misinformation. So now they got to get the eyes off of that. They got to get the eyes off. So what do? You please the masses. You come out and you showcase that Bryan Kohberger, the suspected quadruple homicide, well, I can't even use the word suspected anymore. Let's say the convicted, but not by pure evidence, convicted by this very narrative. This has been going on since the beginning, and this could potentially be the very reason why Bryan Kohberger accepted a plea bargain to save his life. He just might not have ever thought that he could get out of these charges. I know it's been a little longer video. I'm glad that you were able to spend a little bit more time with me because, again, we had to break down a misinformation-filled video. Just more lies, more narrative building, and more BS. The clowns are playing. Follow the leader, all by information delivered to you by sources like Daily Mail.